Welcome to this week's 52 circles, and our prompt this week is scrunch. So I've got my calico circle, some plastic to protect the table, some acrylic paint and an old piece of paper. So this is just an envelope which I'm scrunching up, and I'm going to use that for the scrunch element of the challenge. So we're going to be taking a print from that. So I'm going to start by mixing up some acrylic paint. I'm using a monochromatic palette just because I'm working on a project looking at the moon at the moment, so my studio's full of white and black paint. And I've dipped my scrunched bit of envelope into the acrylic paint, and I'm just using that to print the surface of the circle. So varying how much ink I'm putting onto the paper to create a different tonal effect. And then with a second circle, I've just scrunched that up and dipped it into the paint. But to be honest, that didn't quite give me the effect that I wanted. So I carried on scrunching it up while the paint was wet, just to see if I could get some more interesting marks across a wider area of the circle. And then I've just, with a clean brush and a bit of clean water, I'm just softening up some of those areas to give me a bigger tonal contrast. I've ironed these in between two bits of calico just to dry them off quickly. And I quite like the way that they've dried and the kind of randomness of the pattern that's given me from the scrunched piece of paper as a kind of backdrop to work on. And I also like the print that it's made onto the calico from my ironing board, so that will obviously be used for something in the future. So now I'm going to add an extra layer of scrunch. So I'm just doing some random running stitches into the circle so that I can pull it together into a scrunched kind of form. And when it's scrunched up, I'm just covering it with some white acrylic paint on a foam brush. So I'm just adding that to the surface. And then in a minute, you'll see I'm just going to cut the threads away and stretch out the circle again so that I'm left with the white acrylic pattern. And again, there's a randomness to all of this, so an element of chance, which I'm then going to use as a backdrop to stitch into. So once all of the stitches were pulled out, I gave it another press in between some pieces of fabric. You could also use baking paper just to dry it off quickly. And because it's acrylic, it doesn't take very long to dry. So I quite like the addition of the white from the scrunched kind of shape. It gives it, again, a different element of pattern. And I'm just infilling with some black seed stitching in quite a thick cotton. And there are my finished samples, and I look forward to seeing yours. Don't forget to share, and I'll see you next week.